All right, hi everybody. Welcome to Thinkful. What are we calling this thing? We're calling this
Think Swift.
Think Swift. So I'm here in New York with a few people on the Thinkful team, including Laura. Today we've got a few people joining us in a hangout, including three Thinkful mentors who are all currently working with students in our iOS course and also contributing to the revision of our iOS curriculum, which we have been working on for some time, but we found out yesterday would include a new programming language. So I'd like to just take a moment to introduce Jeremy, who is an independent iOS developer, works here with students. Khaled, same deal, independent iOS developer, MBA, electrical engineer, gummy bear aficionado, I don't know. And then we also have Abhishek, who works at Mindvalley and is also working with Thinkful students and contributing to the revision of our curriculum. So as a lot of people know, if you don't already, yesterday during the last 8-9 minutes of the keynote at WWDC 14, Apple announced a new programming language, Swift, that a lot of people have been talking about. And today, we just kind of wanted to talk about a few things related to Swift. I think the biggest takeaway is that we don't have a ton of information about what will be happening in the future, so a lot of this is very speculative. But there is a lot to dig into, including a 500-page book of documentation about it. So we have at least some basis to start forming opinions. I guess I'm going to start off and
Let's introduce the rest of the people.
Yeah, let's introduce the rest of the people. So we have some other folks joining us today. Stephanie is a student right now in the iOS course working with Jeremy. She is at AltConf across the street from WWDC. And then
so do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, Stephanie, and then we'll just kind of keep going, one bobbing head over at a time?
Okay, terrific. So I am a Thinkful student. I feel very fortunate to have Jeremy assigned as my mentor. He's sort of like the touch point in the week where, you know, if I was confused about anything, it gets cleared up. So I am actually taking a year or two to kind of travel, code, learn, and you know, just kind of do something different. Before that, I worked for 6 years in finance, but want to. I'm loving this, and this is kind of a really great thing. It's where I forget to eat, so I appreciate it, and thank you.
Awesome.
I've just recently met Stephanie, and I've creeped her out on the internet, and she looks like Wonder Woman by all accounts, so I'm super excited to get to know you, Steph.
Thank you. Hi.
And then we have Matt joining us as well.
No, we've got Josh.
Oh.
Next one over. We got Josh.
Am I up? Okay. My name's Josh Johnson. I'm an iOS developer in Durham, North Carolina. I work at Two Toasters. We're an iOS and Android consultant thing, whatever the right word is. I work on the iOS team. We work with lots of different clients and build apps, and we kind of design stuff and build it. I was also up to 3:30 last night writing something in Swift, so I'm a little tired right now.
Awesome. And then we've also got Brian joining us from the WWDC area as well.
Deep in the trenches of Cupertino.
Yeah, I'm attending AltConf. I didn't get a ticket, so my 3-year streak is over, and I'm here checking out all the third-party stuff at Alt.
Yeah.
Brian has OG status. Just ask him about all of his Kickstarter projects and his awesome app. He's a really cool guy, and he's also my best friend for joining.
So let's dive right in. And Jeremy, I'm going to kick this question over to you. So take a moment to introduce yourself, and then tell us, what do you think? What is Apple's motivation for dropping a new programming language on this?
Yeah, I think, so I'm Jeremy. I'm an independent software developer. I've been doing iOS since it launched, and I've been coming to WWDC since about 2001. Every once in a while, Apple does something fairly significant like this, and this was one of those one more thing moments for the DevTools side of things. My perspective, I think what they're doing is they're trying to set themselves up for future work here. one of the things about Objective-C, kind of the old language of choice, is that it was a bit kind of opinionated in that it looked kind of funny, and people didn't really enjoy coming to it as a new language. So they're trying to bring new developers on, and they're always promoting these new numbers about how many new developers are coming to the platform. So they're trying to push things forward and maybe moving aside the current set of tools a little bit there.
Mm-hmm.
It's exciting and completely scary because nobody knows really very much about this.
Yeah, fair enough. So, Khaled, do you first take a second to introduce yourself to everyone, and then do you agree? Do you think that like bringing new developers into iOS development is kind of Apple's primary goal with Swift?
Yeah, I mean, so just a quick introduction. I'm a freelance developer. I'm a developer that turned engineer, turned finance. Hi, Stephanie, and turned back to reverted to my true DNA, if that's the case. So anyway, definitely, I mean, the fact that they put up the number, Apple put up the number that 70% of the attendees are first-time attendees, kind of is very telling in terms of the number of new developers joining the Apple program, and I know that the WWDC was lottery-based this year. I have a very strong feeling that it's lottery-based with skewed towards people who have not attended WWDC before, because I got a feeling that a lot of the folks who attended before 2 or 3 times just didn't get tickets. So there is some logic to the randomness, but Apple is always. I mean, if you think of the progression going from nibs to storyboard and now to Swift, they're always trying to kind of take the language, if you will, closer to a higher level and closer to the user, making it simpler. And that's always been a little bit hard to kind of make the language simpler yet make it still powerful enough to do what it does. And I think that's what they were able to. We think they've been able to achieve with Swift. And by doing that, being able to introduce a whole slew of developers. If you watch the keynote, you're also seeing a lot of very young developers coming in. I mean, we're talking, under 18, and you just and I've seen that over and over. At WWDC, they have a whole section that is only for minors, and that section seems to be getting more and more crowded over the years. So I think there is. That's the short answer is yes. I think it's a way to have more and more developers take a lot of the annoying stuff that was that you had to deal with when you were working with C, and trying to just make it easier for developers to focus on the application, the game, whatever they're trying to build. So.
Cool. So Abhishek, I know you're in a different time zone. And that all of this probably isn't very convenient for your sleep schedule. But if you've had enough of a chance to start taking a look at Swift, can you talk a little bit about some of the aspects that might make it easier for new users to come in and pick up, or for people getting started with mobile development to get in the swing of?
Right. So, all right. Hi, I'm Abhishek. I work for a company called Mind Valley here in Malaysia, and I've been making applications for the past 3 years now. I'm actually recent compared to Jeremy and Khaled, but it's fun. I enjoy it a lot. I did have a look at Swift. Actually, I have been going over through that book that they provided because I am sort of a fan of Apple, and I was very excited when they introduced Swift. So from my perspective, I think it's very simple to understand, at least for new people who have never worked with Objective-C. So as a layman's language, I think it's much easier than Objective-C to adapt to. And what Apple have done is they have cleared all the clutter, all the noise in the background, like with pointers and with syntax. They've made it very simple and very easy to code in that language.
Yeah, cool. So, so Abhishek, you mentioned pointers and syntax. Jeremy, is there anything else that you've noticed with Swift so far that might make it kind of more friendly to somebody getting started with programming?
Yeah, well, I think there's clearly is borrowing a lot of concepts from other programming languages. I think if you work with other languages, you're going to find something you like about it, for good or bad. As for new people, I think, yeah, it's really kind of leveled the playing field a little bit. It's, you know, with the integration of some of the new tools they've got coming out, just getting introduced to the concepts of programming languages, it really makes it a much more visual and kind of engaging experience. I'm really excited to see how new students will come to this and use different parts of their brain when they're learning about programming. I know that back in the day when I was learning, it was all about, you know, visual logo stuff being drawn on the screen. So coming back to that and using some of those concepts that some of the great pundits out there have been talking about would be good to bring in.
Yeah, so you're hinting at playgrounds, I think, and so let's spend a little bit of time talking about that because that's really interesting. And from my perspective, as somebody involved in education, I think that's fascinating. So for those who may or may not be familiar with Brett Victor, he's a really influential person in computing these days. He's had a lot of really interesting ideas that were, in fact, informing our conversation here at Thinkful about how to approach teaching iOS development and really programming in general. So Khaled, can you talk a little bit about like what Playgrounds is and why you find it kind of interesting from a pedagogical perspective?
Sure. I mean, you know, just having played a little bit with the Playground. So, I mean, obviously with Swift, there's a couple of ways to get up to speed on it and learn it. You can do it with Playground. You can do it on Terminal. Obviously, on Playground, it's a little bit more snazzy. But just as a first perspective, looking at Playground. And you know, looking at the assistant editor and, if you will, the output that you actually tend to see, it feels like there's a little bit of Wolfram in there, and I'm not sure if folks are familiar with Wolfram. But it feels there's something there from Wolfram, and I can't put my finger on it, but I know that Wolfram has been getting more and more integrated into searches, etc. So, but anyway, I think the ability to actually right away, as you're typing, be actually able to see your output is very interesting, right? So that's even you know, so that's actually very interesting, and also having actually, there's a couple of other things that were there in terms of actually. If you're having some type of animation, to be able to actually see, you know, take it back and forth and see it across time, and be able to actually possibly see the transition of different steps within your program. I think it's just going to allow, you know, if you think about how that process was before, you actually had to run the program, have some kind of output, go look at it, and you know, figure out what the error is and go back and change it. So the ability to actually see your output right there and be able to actually maintain several steps of your output live on the Playground is going to be very powerful in terms of debugging and helping actually build your app. So I think Playground is, and you know, no pun intended here, is going to be a really nice playground.
Yeah.
As a total newbie, I'm kind of just starting out and getting very excited. I've always kind of been on the periphery, but the quote that Chris Latner just put up on his website, the lead developer of Swift, was mind-boggling to me and super in line with, I think, everything that we believe. He talked about how the Xcode playgrounds and Ripple were a personal passion of his, and he says, quote, "I hope that by making programming more approachable and fun, it will appeal to the next generation of programmers and help to redefine how computer science is taught." So that to me is very exciting, and I think that using language like Playground and all of that stuff sounds more inherently approachable and exciting as a newbie kind of getting ready to start out. I'm curious as to what Stephanie and Brian think kind of on the ground.
Okay. Yeah. So I think it does level the playing field, right? And it seems like it will be, especially if you have never programmed before. It looks like it is much more forgiving, I would say, than Objective-C. You know, Objective-C is the first language that I really learned well. So I got very used to this strict structure where, you know, if I missed a semicolon somewhere, or I, you know, hit one typo, you know, in one file, I would be tracking that down and trying to figure out why doesn't this work. Swift seems like A, you will see immediately that it's not working in Playgrounds if you're running that, and B, you know, it doesn't require a lot of that strict punctuation. It sort of says, you know, these things are optional, right? So I think if you are really new, you will find, A, you will find it easier than Objective-C, and B, you are on a more of a level playing field. Like this guy sitting next to me, like watching the keynote, I noticed him talking to his neighbor like while he was coding. Like he would code and not look at the screen, and I said, okay, so this is my competition, you know, and that was kind of before the keynote. But the thing is, after the keynote, it's a little bit less like that. So I think you should really, I mean, I intend to dive in, absorb as much Swift as I can, as quickly as I can, and really just learn, because I feel like it is actually a little bit more level. I will probably learn slower than someone who's been doing this for, you know, 15 years, but I will be learning along the same learning curve, which is kind of cool. So
that's awesome. Brian, inquiring minds want to know, which emoji will you first be using in your code?
Oh, I like to use all the range of animals, so I'll probably try to figure out some sort of animal-driven app.
How do you feel about all of this besides animals and emojis?
I don't think of it as so much as in a more approachable or fun kind of thing. I've had plenty of fun doing iOS development in the last 5 or 6 years with Objective-C, but I do think it's certainly going to increase developer productivity. It's just a much more streamlined and expressive syntax, and you can kind of do so much more with so many fewer keystrokes. And then there's just like a lot of tools that I've seen the last couple of days. Playground, obviously, and then I forget exactly what they're calling it, but it's on the right side of the screen in between your editor and Playground, and I guess it's like part of the REPL. It shows the result of each expression as you type. I feel like that's going to help me uncover a lot of bugs before I actually hit run, which is pretty cool. Yesterday in the keynote, they gave an example of drawing a UI Bezier path and specifying a bunch of points, and then instantly the presenter could see that, you know, there's a problem. His shape was being drawn completely wrong. So I think that's really cool, and it'll help make developing apps a lot faster, even for those of us that have already been doing iOS for a while.
Yeah. So that raises kind of an interesting point. I mean, we've been talking about Swift from the perspective of somebody just getting started, and I think that's a really big motivation for Apple, and I see a lot of potential there. But what are existing developers? What do you guys see happening with existing projects, with third-party libraries? That's kind of a whole other realm of things that we could talk about. Abhishek, are you planning to start any projects in Swift right away, or are you going to stick with Objective-C for a while?
No, not right away for sure. I think it will take at least under a year for people to migrate to Swift, because there are so many projects in line. There are so many chunks of code that have already been written in Objective-C. So this migration, it won't be like immediate. Within 6 months you'll have Swift there, but eventually everyone will. But for me personally, I don't think I will be migrating like at least for another 5 to 6 months, because I have a lot in pipeline. They're all done. So, but eventually, yeah, I do plan to move to Swift. In the meanwhile, it's also because people need time to understand how Swift works, because there is a lot of documentation. There's a lot to be read about before you actually dive into it.
What about you, Josh? How's that going to plan on affecting your pipeline over at Two Toasters?
I mean, I agree a lot with what Abhishek said. As far as, you know, 6 months to a year, we're very big fans of Objective-C. So we, you know, for us it was, you know, we a lot of us most of us have been doing it since the beginning. So we're definitely, we find it a very elegant language. So all of this is kind of bittersweet, I think, in some ways. But yeah, I think having time to really, like we've said before, or like somebody said, I think Stephanie said, we're all at the beginning now, and we all need to know how this works.
I'm curious from the front lines of, are your clients coming up and approaching to you and talking about this shiny new object, or is it kind of you taking that path?
No, not yet. I mean, and they don't. Most of our clients come to us. They have the idea of what they want to build, or they already have something on another platform, and they want that. So they don't really come to us specifying, what they want. We'll sometimes they'll specify like cross-platform, and then we'll be like, no, we do Android specifically, and we do iOS specifically. But they don't ever. I don't think I've ever heard a client say, you need to write this in Objective-C.
Yeah.
If I did, I would probably high-five them. But
let me throw a question out that we here in the office have gotten several times today. If you are a brand new iOS developer, if you're just getting started learning, should you learn both Swift and Objective-C? And like, what should your approach to each of these languages be? And I know that's a really tough question, so I'm gonna see who wants to jump on that grenade first.
I'll start a little bit, I guess.
I vote we just nominate.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think it's not going to be harmful to know Objective-C in the future, but I mean, my son is 17, and I've been teaching him Objective-C for like 5 years, or at least trying to, and it's never really taken with him. And I think Swift will be the language for him, learning. But really, the key thing that you're learning is Cocoa, right? Like, you're learning those libraries, and how the language is just kind of your interface to the libraries, and those are going to be the things that we still build with. So either way you go, you're still going to have, the knowledge of Cocoa. And
yeah, Jeremy, I know you have. I know you have opinions on this. What do you see the relationship being between Swift and Objective-C for kind of students over the next year, maybe 2 years?
Yeah, I think there is going to be this transition, but like I said, Apple's done this kind of thing before, where they've said, this is the new thing. Let's move in this direction. And if you don't heed that guidance, you're kind of setting yourself up for a little bit of pain later on. I'm kind of waiting to see how this shakes out and seeing what their guidance is. They haven't specifically said that Objective-C is going away. And like Josh says, I think there's no harm, and there's actually good value in learning the language. But again, this is, as he says, a level of language to interface with the core technologies that are under the hood, and that's where the real power of iOS is. They're continuing to roll out these great new APIs and new technologies, and that's, once you get past how to program in a language, that's where most of the learning happens. How to get your hooks into these frameworks and start doing some really cool things.
Yeah. So I mean,
I will also say that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I will also say, just as someone who's new, and so Objective-C sort of was my first language, and I actually kind of love it. But I get frustrated all the time because I didn't know C. So every time I have to drop down to C, I end up like in Google search and Stack Overflow, and I talk to Jeremy, and it's really tough. And I kind of wonder if something similar might happen with Objective-C, where it's kind of a real plus to know it. Just because if you hit something where Swift maybe isn't fully functional yet, I mean, it might, maybe it's 100% out of the gate, or maybe not. And if you hit that point and you need to drop down, like I think it would be good to be able to.
Yeah. So where I guess Khaled, let me ask you this question: where do you see people who are looking for jobs focusing their attention over the next 6 months or a year?
I think that if we just look historically at it, and I might get the time frame wrong here, but Apple kind of did something similar when they transitioned from GCC through the LLVM, right? And if I recall correctly, I think it was I think it was maybe a 4-year transition, possibly 4 or 5-year transition, where they introduced LLVM, and then there was a year where it was kind of a combination, and then eventually transitioned out of it. but and then I think it was a couple of years ago where they said, that's it, or last WWDC, where they said, that's it, LLVM, that's it. And so I think that but when you look at it, it just felt like, I don't know, it just felt that this time the ante has been upped up in terms. I think they're going to move a little bit faster. And so, for example, if you take even the documentation that they have right now, and the ability to actually be able to see the documentation in the old format and in Objective-C and Swift, it just kind of tells you that they're pretty serious about this direction. I think personally that if for any existing apps that exist right now, I think companies are still going to be recruiting folks that have a very, very strong Objective-C, because I believe this transition is probably a multi-year transition. But I would say if I'm looking at somebody who's just starting right now, who's starting, want to develop an app, which is likely going to take 6 months to 9 months to get it out, and it's going to take them a couple of months to ramp up, which means hopefully, there'll be a couple of releases on Swift and iOS 8. I would say you just start learning Swift directly and go to Objective-C as needed. That's for new folks. It would be kind of like somebody coming in and now and having to explain memory management versus saying, listen, you know what, you've got ARC, just don't worry about it, it's done. So I would say for anyone joining new, they should just jump in at Swift and reach out to Objective-C as needed. And obviously, like Josh said, I mean, you still get the whole Cocoa and Cocoa. I mean, it's not going to go away. You need to know the frameworks. And for anybody else who's still got experience and get a bit of experience, they can continue on Objective-C for 6 months to a year, and then switch over, or start to transition slowly to Swift.
Brian, is that the same consensus over at Wildcard? Are you going to be hiring people with 3 to 5 years of experience as well, or with kind of?
I mean, we haven't had the chance to decide all that yet, but I think that what we're probably going to do is I'm really typically very quick to adopt new Apple technologies, whether it's ARC or storyboards. Shipping obviously is more important in a lot of these cases, but as soon as shipping's out of the way, then I like to adopt new technologies as soon as I can. So I think we'll probably start integrating Swift into our code base, before the end of the year, probably after iOS 8 is released, and then it's going to be safe to build stuff with the Xcode, new Xcode 6 or whatever the new version of Xcode is.
Cool. So Brian, you mentioned that the Swift is a bit more expressive, and Jeremy, you hinted at a ton of borrowed features from other languages. Last question, quick answer maybe from everybody. I'm just going to start with you, Abhishek, since you're on one side of the screen for me. What are you looking forward to the most?
I think the playground feature and the simplicity of using it as you can see the results as you code. Probably that is exciting for me, and I also think that it's easier for everyone now. So yeah, it levels the play field.
Cool. All right, Brian, what about you? What are you looking forward to?
Really just increased productivity. I feel like it's going to take less time to write code now. Everything's just going to be faster. So I think it's going to be a good time savings and a great way to kind of accelerate the app development process.
Cool, Jeremy. How about you? What do you like, or what do you think you like the most?
Yeah, I'm with Brian. Anything we can do to trim down code and make it a little more expressive, things like Ruby and Python, you can really be quite concise. I like that a lot about what Swift has to offer.
Mm. Cool. And
Josh?
Josh, what about you? What do you like?
I'm interested in some of the language features, like I'm going to pronounce this wrong because I think someone was joking tuples about how they pronounce it like 15 different ways. But Things like that and things like multiple return values, I think some of those things will allow you, like, I mean, back to what everyone else has been saying, it's very expressive, so that's exciting. And the other thing about playgrounds really quick is I found this morning, I was up late, like I said, doing some stuff, and I was able to bring the playground in and send it to everybody, and then everybody got to play with that playground. So I think that's definitely a powerful tool.
Yeah.
We'll totally follow up and see how your son's coding progress goes, by the way.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. And Khaled, how about you?
No, just kind of along everybody else. I'm looking forward to condensed code. It looks at least that you can condense your code a little bit more, and really just the ability to use the playground to kind of be able to test things a little bit faster.
Yeah, awesome. And Stephanie, you get the last word. What do you like? What are you looking forward to, or what are you hopeful about?
Or do you have any fun projects in mind that you plan to sink your teeth into with this? Like,
you're still muted. I can't hear you. Oh.
Can you unmute yourself? Sorry, I don't know if you can.
Sorry. Okay. So whatever I haven't started yet would be a candidate for Swift. You know, probably the less complex stuff at first. I'm looking forward to a more intuitive debugging process.
Yeah, excellent. Awesome. Well, hey, thanks again for everybody to join us and hang out and talk really speculatively about a brand new technology that we're all just learning about. So I really appreciate it.
Thanks for geeking out with us in between the two ferns. I know they're kind of like hidden over here, and we're getting in the way and staying up for more hours, like Grae said. But we really appreciate it, and look forward to having many more chats with you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.